I'm the president of Musicians for Social Justice. MSJ is an organization that believes in the power of music to create a safe space embraced by culture, to unite the community of marginalized students, and ultimately the culture of Montclair State University as a whole. Thank you all for joining us for our first hashtag MSJ Chats titled HERstory. MSJ Chats is a movement we kind of started via Zoom to keep the conversation going, to keep our students engaged. And again, just introducing different topics and giving students a platform to let their voices be heard, but also to hear from different panelists who have experienced different things. Today, we are celebrating Women's History Month, and we have an amazing panel of women who are successful in their own right. Today, they will be sharing their stories and experiences with us. I will let them introduce themselves to you now, starting with Dr. Freeman.
Thank you, Michaela. My name is Dr. Tamara Freeman, and first I want to thank my co-panelists, Leslie Dixon and Maxine Roach, and Dr. Redding Rains. I am a Holocaust ethnomusicologist, educator, and recitalist. I teach and perform music that was composed in the ghettos and concentration camps of World War II in Europe. My career started as an Israeli folk dance teacher and music teacher. I was a vocal teacher and general music teacher in the Poughkeepsie Inner City School District right after graduating from the Crane School of Music, SUNY Potsdam. And then for 30 years, I taught instrumental music, conducted orchestras and bands in the Ridgewood Public School District. And that morphed into my current career in Holocaust music.
Now, Maxine Roach, if you want to introduce yourself to the rest of our viewers.
So Maxine Roach, born and bred in Brooklyn, New York. I live in Jersey now. I attended Oberlin Conservatory of Music. And then I spent a couple of years in Europe playing and studying with some great viola players. I play the viola. I'm a violist. And when I came back from Europe, I started a professional career. And I think my first gig was with Perry Como. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Perry Como. Rosemary, probably. Lovely man, all the way up to, Beyonce. I played with everybody you could imagine. At some point when I was in college, I think my senior year, my grandmother, my father is Max Roach. If you guys know who Max Roach is. So my grandmother, his mother, said to him, Max, you've played with Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie. When are you going to play with your daughter? So he thought about it, and he formed a string quartet because I play the viola, and he wanted a string quartet with 4 Black women to play along with his quartet, which was 4 Black men. And he actually not only commissioned the music, he demanded that we write as well. And we swing when we got on the bandstand with him. But he also staged us in a way that he put the women right in the middle of the stage and the men surrounding the women. That's how we played. It was called the Max Roach Double Quartet. And most of the comments after the performance was always like, Max, you're such an egalitarian guy. It's just wonderful. So the visual thing was very important. And, he was one of my role models. So it was called the Uptown String Quartet. Okay.
And now we'll pass it off to Dr. Redding Rains.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Redding Rains. I am a faculty member in the Department of Social Work at Rutgers University in Newark, as well as the undergraduate student advisor. I am a social justice change agent. I believe in advocating for those who don't have a voice for themselves. I like to consider myself right in the throes of injustice, I like to speak about it at every opportunity. So this is a wonderful opportunity to share my voice, to share my platform. I choose to effectuate change by speaking up through the articulation of words that provide a powerful imagery, an imagery that helps to humanize and actualize the emotions and grievances and fears of those who may or may not have a way to voice their own concerns, an imagery that tells their story, my story, and collectively our story. And so I thank you for the opportunity for sharing my story today.
And now we have Miss Leslie Dixon.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leslie Dixon, and I'm really honored to be a part of this panel and really so excited to learn from the other panelists. So thank you so much for the invitation. I am also a social worker. I had the honor and privilege to work with Dr. Redding Rain at Rutgers before I joined the faculty here at Montclair State University. So I've been part of the social work program at Montclair State for the past 3 years. We just launched the program in 2018 and recently obtained accreditation. So we're really excited about that. So I'm excited to be able to work with the next generation of social workers, excited to really have this opportunity to partner with this organization. I'm also very passionate about social justice and eradicating all forms of racism, discrimination, and I think that it takes a collective effort to do so. My background is in working more directly with folks in the community. So I've done some in-home therapy. I've worked for Rutgers with young adults who are aging out of the foster care system and helping them to transition to adulthood. I've worked for managed care. So a lot of different areas in the social work field, but again, really love the opportunity to be of service to others, and so thankful to be here today. And again, I'm currently with the social work program at Montclair, so I am the field education director, and I'm responsible for assisting students to obtain their practicums, and then also have the privilege of teaching. So thank you so much again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Dixon, and welcome, you guys. I am Marcos Rivera, the Director of Outreach, and I will be co-hosting this little session with our President, Micaela. So let's kick it off with question number 1. Now more than ever, mainstream media has so much influence on the world around us, which includes celebrities, movies, influencers, visual artists, and music as well. Can you share with us a time when the media had inspired or influenced you as a woman, even empowered you? Is there anyone who inspired you as a child or who is currently inspiring you? Let's start off with Maxine.
Well, I would say my parents first had a great impact on me as a child. In my professional career, I think, well, let me I'll tell you about my father first. Playing with the double quartet, I would sit right next to my right ear would be right next to his ride cymbal. And it wasn't loud. Never was it loud. And I just feel like I'm the kind of musician. I'm a professional. I've been in many rooms observing behavior on and off the stage. And what is so true, especially watching my father, is that a Black man who's been through so much and gets behind his instrument soars. It just seems to be a freedom. And the freedom comes with exceptional skill and mastery of that particular instrument, where you are just in flight and you forget about everything else. This is what happens on the stage. And I observed that with so many artists. And the way it happens is because they master the instruments. So I would say, Aretha, to watch her on stage and off stage, Whitney especially, geez, Beyonce is, it's so many people that was fortunate enough to be in the room with. So I would take up too much time if I did, if I gave to everybody. You know, uh, Sammy
Dr.
Davis was a fantastic musician and performance, and all of these people rose up, on stage, and that was to me a very political statement because these were Black folks, you know, exceptional Black folks, and that's a form of protest. I don't know if that answered your question, but
Oh, no, of course it did. Dr. Redding, please feel free to chime in as well.
Thank you so much for that. Just in looking at your, reflecting on the first part of your question, I would have to say, certainly the draconian rollback of Roe v. Wade and women not being able to have a voice and control of their own bodies, that you would allow politicians to make laws to make the determination about what a woman can and cannot do with her body, even in situations of rape. So certainly that is a platform that I certainly rallied my banner behind, as well as right now, Black Lives Matter movement, because although you may hear time and time again that all lives matter, yes, I will agree with you that yes, all lives matter. However, but they're not killing you in the streets. They're not endangering the next generation of future scholars and musicians. They're not endangering that with the majority group or with whites. They're endangering Black and brown children and Black and brown families. So certainly I would say those two movements certainly have energized me and certainly helps me to push forth the social justice banner. Now, my inspirations in life is certainly my mother. I come from a long line of strong Black women who have certainly given me the courage and the determination to know that I can and succeed at anything that I put my mind to. And my mother has allowed me at every step of her life to encourage me, to realize that I can succeed. And that is what I try to pass on, not only to my students, but as well as my daughter. And then I would like to say that my second hero is my daughter, Sen, who she inspires me each and every day at her tender age of 21 with her vivacious smile and her infectious laughter and her words of wisdom. Because I know that in my moments of darkness that I've had with life, Sen could come and tell you, life is not waiting for the storm to pass, mommy. It's about dancing in the rain. So that's what I say. It's about dancing in the rain. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Cindy's just cheesing. She's smiling. Mrs. Dixon, what do you have to say?
Thank you so much for that. I think I'd have to agree that my first inspiration were my mother and grandmother. They immigrated here from Jamaica and came with not much at all, not much education. My grandmother is going to be turning 94 this year, so I am incredibly grateful that I still have her and I can ask her anything, and she has an incredible memory. So she shares what it was like when she came here and how she worked as a housekeeper and did various odd jobs to really support her family. My mother really inspires me. She always taught me that she wanted me to be independent, have an education so that I could have choices. She said that I think one of the worst things is to feel like you are trapped and that you don't have options. So that she was an incredible and continues to be an incredible inspiration to me. And when I thought back on the question about kind of how the media has influenced me, I thought about Oprah Winfrey actually, and I just remember growing up in the 90s, and I just really fell in love with her. I would watch her shows every week, and just to kind of see her as well, as a Black woman, really coming from very humble beginnings, just kind of taking what she had internally and just soaring. And I think that she was probably one of the first people that really modeled for me what it means to bring healing front and center, what it means to be vulnerable, what it means to be a risk taker. She really, I think, kind of helped to master creating, I think, brave spaces for people to tell their truth. And she didn't shy away from that. And she's just really kind of broken so many barriers. So she's been an incredible inspiration for me as a Black woman. Thank you.
Dr. Friedman.
Well, I have to say that my most current positive influences are the three panelists who just spoke just now. I'm already so inspired by what you have said and the way you have said it. We have so much in common because growing up, it was my parents, particularly my mom, who was a great influence on me. And my mom taught me that whatever you want to accomplish, as long as you work hard and put your mind to it, you can do it. And my mother was among the first females to graduate from Hebrew Union College School of Sacred Music as a female cantor. And after her graduation, the graduating classes of seminarians voted her to be the cantor for their investiture ceremonies, for their graduation ceremonies. So my mother, as a new cantor, was blessing on the pulpit the future cantors. And she is still with us at the age of 86, but she had an amazing contralto voice. And to wake up in the morning and hear her warm up in the shower and sing so magnificently was just a great, great blessing. And here I was, a young child learning how to play the violin and the viola like Maxine. And I had this incredible lyrical voice in my ears. So before I even was holding the bow correctly, I was already doing vibrato on the fingerboard because I was hearing it from my mother's voice. And I love the way my mother stood up straight and spoke her truth and spoke with dignity. And one of my great, more current heroes is Maya Angelou, because she chooses her words so carefully. Every word counts. Her poetry is inspiring, but it's the way she says it, which is a powerful influence on me when I give Holocaust music lecture recitals. Before I begin to even write what I'm going to say, I think of Maya Angelou and the way she chooses her words and the way she delivers them. The dignity and the purpose of her voice is a great inspiration for me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Freeman. And while we're on the subject of mainstream and the media's impact, I want to add another question to you, and anybody feel free to jump in, but how do you guys think the female has been, I'm losing my mind now. How do you think the female has been showcased on social media, through social media? How do you guys feel the media has made us look at women and perceive women? And has it been in a negative light? Has it been in a positive light, especially with what has happened from 2010 to 2020? I feel like it's been a new wave, a new renaissance, if you say, of women and the Time's Up movement. So how do you think everything has changed? Anyone feel free to jump in.
I think that's a good question. I would say it like this. It depends on who you ask this question to, because if you're speaking to the older generation, they would tell you it's creating a culture where it's sexualizing women. It's reflecting back on how women were historically looked at as Jezebels or, mammies, looked at in a very sexualized, very derogatory way. However, if you begin to talk now and frame this question to millennials or Gen Z, they'll tell you quite differently. Oh, ain't nothing wrong. They getting their paper, and it's about time women become empowered. I'm trying to think of Amber. She does the whole walk, the strut walk down the highway to let you know it's about women embracing their sexuality. It's about women being authentic. So it depends on who you ask that question to. And because I teach students who are also from the older generation, I have some millennials in my classroom. And so I try to really understand from each direction that they're coming to. I think the best answer I would say is allow a person to be authentic in any way that they present themselves to you in their true authentic self. And then if it's not bothering them, then, why is it bothering you? That's how I'm going to answer that question.
Oh, beautifully said. Beautifully said. Anybody else want to chime in?
Yeah, I just want to say, you guys, chatting with some of the e-board members, and the energy from our panelists is great. You guys are literally taking over the Zoom screen, which is awesome because, this is like the best we can do right now. And again, just thank you guys for being here. Hearing what inspires you is also super, super inspiring. And I can relate in the sense that, my mom is one of my biggest inspirations. As hard as she is on me, as a single parent and as a Hispanic woman who was not born in the States, watching her kind of, invest all her time and hard work really pushes me to do my best, especially in the world of classical music, where sometimes things are not really meant for Black and Brown or the BIPOC population. So thank you guys for sharing your story. So moving on to our next question. Women are often forced to be strong, independent, and the ones who always have to hold it down, keep it together, put a nice smile on your face. But there is so much more to life, as we've kind of touched on. There's a lot of difficulties and struggles, time management. So how do you balance your personal life, your career, and your passions? Do you believe there's something as such as balance? We'll start with Dr. Freeman for this one.
Okay, well, thank you. Finding balance for any gender is a big challenge. And as a mother of two grown daughters, and a wife and a professor and a performer and so many other roles that I play, what I have found is that having perfect balance is pretty much impossible. It's the way you handle the tipping of the canoe of your life. And I always see myself in a canoe. And sometimes I have people paddling with me. Sometimes I have people paddling against me. Sometimes things have occurred in my life where the canoe almost is tipped over. So for example, when I was raising my two daughters into their teenage years, they developed serious mental health issues. So suddenly that canoe, which was going pretty straight and evenly, was tipped almost and to the side, almost capsizing. And I found myself in a whole nother realm through the National Alliance of Mental Illness called NAMI. And this turned out, this canoe, which had pretty much capsized, turned out to be an opportunity in disguise. And by learning more about mental illness, how to manage it, it helped me to develop a more empathic intelligence, which then helped to inform my teaching and the way I relate to students. And I realized that my classrooms are so much more than a place to learn a subject area. They need to be a safe haven. They need to be a home where students can take risks and and really develop their unique potential. So in conclusion, finding that balance is always tricky, but it's important to develop the coping skills for when that canoe tips to the left or to the right or capsizes. And to get that balance, you need the humility to ask for help and reach out to people who will be non-judgmental and who will be caring and who will have your back.
Thank you for that, Dr. Freeman. I think, it's important to sometimes realize, asking for help is okay. That you don't always have to be the strongest person. And, finding that circle of friends or group of family members that are gonna kind of be there with you and help you through the difficult times. I would like to pass this question off to Miss Maxine Roach now.
Well, I was thinking about balance, and I think I I think I have more balance now that I'm retired than I did when I was working or even going to school. I didn't ask for help as a student. I grew up in Bedford-Stuyvesant. I went to a Catholic school there. My brother and I were the first to integrate the school. The first day of school, they tore up our uniforms and our books, the kids did. And we stayed. So trauma. I go to Oberlin Conservatory of Music, and it's welcome, but leave your culture at home. Thank you very much. Studying classical music. And I love classical music. And it wasn't until, so, there's a certain kind of strength that you've got to have. And I'm not sure that the strength that I had was something I learned at home, maybe by osmosis or something, but I was very protective of myself. And so in some ways that translated into strength. And a lot of young Black women are like that, So, and it wasn't until just a few years ago that I asked for help. This is after a whole career of playing for everybody that you can imagine, So you look up and then you say, well, there hasn't been much balance in my life, but I'm still here. So.
Thank you. Let's pass this question to Miss Leslie Dixon.
I'm inspired again. I love the idea or the analogy of the canoe and also asking for help. I think when I reflected on this question, that I feel like it's been very difficult for me to have balance. And I think it really kind of has depended on the season in life that I'm in. So I thought back to my 20s before I had my daughter and I was single and didn't really have a lot of responsibilities and have the luxury to be able to go to school and to travel. And I felt like at that time, maybe it was a little bit easier and I was able to kind of focus more on who I was becoming, who I wanted to be, and those passions. And then into my 30s and 40s, it was more about kind of exploring my career and then becoming a partner and a mother and really trying to figure out how to redefine myself in those areas. And I think I had to learn really how to kind of prioritize. So I've learned to try to put anchors in my life. So certain rituals that I do in the morning that help me stay grounded. So whether that's prayer and meditation, journaling, and that's been a long road. I kind of started that journey, I don't know, 20 something years ago. And there's kind of ebbs and flows where sometimes I'm really able to practice more. And then other times there's just, challenges or things that kind of distract me from that. But I think that trying to have those anchors is helping me now and today to stay grounded. trying to listen to my body. That's been, I think, a challenge, like to just like drink when I'm thirsty or slow down. Used to just kind of been on this treadmill. So that's been a challenge, but just trying to really slow myself down. I remember hearing, I don't remember, was it maybe a podcast or a news report about Marissa Mayer? She was at one point the CEO for Yahoo. And I remember uh, they were interviewing her, and I think she had just had a baby, might have been her second baby. And I think she went back to work after like 2 weeks. And I, my head was like, I was like, oh my goodness, how did she do that? And there's a lot of ideas that you can have about that. But I remember her saying she had to prioritize ruthlessly. So I always tried to kind of keep that in my head, that you have to, or that I have to try and prioritize ruthlessly, that there's just 24 hours and it's not possible, I think, to get everything done. So try to figure out like what's most important. And then also kind of listening to Oprah again, that if not every part of my being is a yes, then it's okay to say no. And that's been a journey, and I still am practicing that as well. So I think again, it's really been dependent on the season of life that I'm in, and then trying to kind of put these anchors in my life. And like the previous panels talked about, just kind of being at a place where it's okay to ask for help. And that's been a journey as well.
Now is Dr. Redding Rains.
Thank you so much for all the comments. I will sum up the question like this. At this point in my life, based on my lived experiences, I believe in taking self-care for me. For selfish reasons, I'm going to take care of me, because if I can't take care of me, I can't take care of holding down what I got to do as a wife, as a mother, as a faculty member to my students, as a colleague. So I'm going to do me. I'm going to have that balance, be it through prayer and meditation, as Leslie indicated, because prayer has certainly grounded me and brought me through some difficulties in my life. So certainly prayer first and foremost. Certainly those anchors, focusing in those things that make me happy. I certainly have discovered during this COVID pandemic time that I really enjoy watching British mysteries. I get overjoyed. Don't talk to me. It's my time. It's me. I got to focus in on what's going on. So I really focus in on that, because in social work, I like to tell my students, if you can't advocate for yourself, if you can't practice self-care for yourself, how then can you be the best in what you need to do in your profession? You can't. So definitely for selfish reasons, I take care of me first. I'm first and everybody else is after. So that's how I round that question up right nicely. Thank you.
Thank you guys all for sharing.
Can I add one thing, please?
Please.
Oh, these comments are wonderful. I want to share another personal experience of womanhood, which is distinctly womanhood, which is providing milk for a baby. And there was a time in my life when I really did want to achieve perfect balance and to nurse my newborn and go to work and keep up my skills of teaching, because I knew that by being with students and creating music with them, it would give me back so much. And I wanted to be there for them, but I wanted to be there for my baby. I wanted it all. And I went to my building principal and I asked if I could come back to work part-time, that I wanted to nurse my babies, but still continue to work with the students who I love so much. And he said yes. So we had a wonderful schedule where I was there for my children in the morning. I brought them to daycare. This was before COVID, of course. I taught for 2.5 hours in the afternoon. I went back to daycare and picked them up and then went home. And during those years, life was really well balanced. And it felt good because I knew I was giving something to my babies that nobody else could at that point in time. So I feel it's important to honor that part of womanhood, the ability to provide nourishment for another person.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Dr. Freeman, for that. Beautiful story. Let's move on to the next question. We all know the phrase, this is a man's world. As previously mentioned, women are always forced to be strong and have to constantly prove that they are equal to men. How have societal ideals surrounding the phrase, this is a man's world, affected your life, your work? Let's start off with Dr. Redding. She laughs.
Okay, well, this is what I'm gonna say about that. You know, James Brown had a song, This is a Man's World, but after the line that he says, this is a man's world, but it would be nothing without a woman or a girl. Don't get it twisted now. So with that being said, all my life I've had to prove myself, but based on the strength of my foreparents, my parents, my grandparents, my mentors in life, I've had to toughen up, especially surrounding my race and my gender. You know, Langston Hughes says life ain't been no crystal stair. However, my life lessons I've learned that have taught me to rise to every occasion. And like Maya Angelou said, I rise, I rise, I rise. Woman, hear me roar. I will not be back down. I will not be denied my moment in the sun because I have a place at the table and I will not be denied that place. And is that all I have to say, or should I go on to the next part of the question?
Please share any personal experiences.
Okay,
let us know, please.
We're so fixated, and how I want to round this up is that we're so fixated on beauty and how we define beauty. Well, I'm using myself as a platform to redefine beauty when it comes to breast cancer survivors. I am a breast cancer survivor, 4 years out from having a double mastectomy. And why should I feel like I have to have reconstructive surgery because society says you got to have well-defined girls or, you know, or little women. You've got to look a certain way. No, I'm just as luscious and beautiful as before my girls went on their long-term vacation after winning the lotto. I check on them every now and then, but they tell me they're not coming back because they're traveling the world and seeing the world because they've been so confined to this thing called my body. However, my motto now in life in embracing my new normal is I'm Black, I'm flat, and I am proud. Thank you very kindly.
Yes. Just drop the mic. Dr. Freeman, could you please chime in to the conversation?
That's Dr. Redding Rains. You're a very difficult act to follow, I have to say. Oh my goodness, that's really something. In my career, there have been times where I have been discriminated against because I'm a woman, without a doubt. And I have, there have been men who have tried to put me in my place. And I was the first female and Jewish female to be put on a conductor's podium in the Ridgewood Public School District in northern New Jersey in Bergen County, where you have all these people who are so brilliant and enlightened. And I was the first one, and that was in 1982. Please remember that it wasn't until the late 1950s that a sign was taken down on the outskirts of Ridgewood, which said no Jews, no Negroes, and no Mongols. Ridgewood is an exclusive community. That was Ridgewood. That's where my career pretty much began. And there were a couple of times when I was on that conductor's podium at Ridgewood High School conducting a 110-piece orchestra, which I developed. And there were male supervisors who didn't like that. and really they tried to sabotage me. And it was worse than it was uncomfortable. It was a terrible burden and inconvenience, because in the evenings, instead of planning my lessons for the orchestra, I was writing memoranda to cover myself and to protect myself and to get in touch with the union. It was a horrible time. And those times are apt to continue for all women. But I know in my heart that when I was on that conductor's podium, I was doing an outstanding job and my students were flourishing and the program was growing. And that pride can never be taken away from me. And I think that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Dixon, please chime in.
Wow, both two really hard acts to follow. I think when I pondered on this question, again, I have to kind of lean back to the influence that my mom and my grandmothers had on me. And I think they really, really instilled, again, the importance of knowing who I am, getting an education, believing in myself, and really not allowing people to kind of impose their ideas of who I should be or who I can be. I think social work is predominantly female-dominated profession. So I think, again, I had the luxury to see women in positions of power or in positions of influence. And that, again, inspired me to not limit myself. I think in terms of my college experience, that was a struggle. I went to a predominantly white Irish Catholic school in New England, and felt like some of the professors there and some of the other students also tried to put me in my place. I leaned in and found a community of women that I still have today that were a rock for me. They really, I think, helped me, again, to find my voice, to believe in myself, and really not allow others to put limitations on who I could be and who I aspire to be.
Beautifully said. Maxine, I know you can relate to the phrase, this is a man's world. So how has it affected your life? And is there any personal experience you would like to share? Oh, you're on mute. Not right there.
Okay. I started playing the viola in junior high school in New York City. And I didn't know what the viola was, actually. But at that time, they used to give tests to elementary school kids to see where their talents lie. So mine was music. At that point in my life, my father and mother were divorced. So my influence didn't come from him at that point. So I entered 7th grade and I thought I'd play the violin. And the teacher said to me, well, why don't you try the viola? Because, you're kind of tall. And I said, okay, I'll try the viola. It actually fit my personality better. So this was my music teacher all through junior high school was a bass player. His name was Jules Hirsch. His father was Emanuel Hirsch. And he suggested that I study with his father, who was a professional viola player, which I did for 3 years through the New York City public schools. I had the same instrument all 3 years. I could take it home anytime. No one else used it. And then when I got to high school, I had the same instrument. No one else used it. Okay. So, but at the end of my 9th year, Mr. Hirsch came to me and said, and I went to a school in the Black neighborhood, junior high school. He came to me at the end of my 9th year and he said, look, I'm going on to Midwood High School. And at that time, Midwood High School in New York City was, one of the best schools in the city. And he says, I'm going to Midwood High School and I'm going to the principal's office and I'm taking your papers with me. Just show up. Don't tell anybody. Just show up. Which I did, because I was supposed to go to a school that didn't really have music. And I really think if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be playing the viola, actually. And so I got to Midwood High School and I studied with his father and I studied with him. And it was a triple session. You had to be in your seat for orchestra first thing in the morning at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was there. I busted there. That's how much I loved it. So here is a positive influence for me of a man's world. I graduated from Oberlin and I studied in Europe for a year. I studied with some of the greatest viola players. In fact, one of the greatest the greatest viola player was there, William Primrose. And he was such a tremendous force. He talked about his life. He talked about going down to 52nd Street with Horowitz, the piano player, to hear God, I can't think of the blind pianist. Oh God, back in the day. Oh, I can't remember his name, but just a tremendous. I mean, or going to hear just jazz. And it was astounding to me because when I went to Oberlin, as I said, you're welcome, but leave your culture at home. So to hear Primrose say this was like astounding. So I come back to New York and I start gigging, and I end up on this record date. I was soon back from Europe, and I don't know how I got on this record date. I know now, but I'm on this record date, and they're all men. I'm sitting in the viola section on the second stand, and I'm nervous, and it's just like all these men, and I'm the only woman. And then at the end of the session, the first violist turns around to me and says, "That was really good, Maxine. I'm going to ball you tonight in front of all these men." And they all cracked up. They all cracked up. That was my terrible situation with a man's world. And they all were laughing. And these were some great players. I was devastated. But you pull yourself together and you get another level, another layer of whatever it is takes it to go to your next gig. Because that's you got to make a living, So those are two very stark differences that I've had. And I've had different degrees of that through my professional life. So I sound like a Debbie Downer, don't I?
Not at all.
Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, can I say one more thing?
Please do.
I had a conversation with my father once, and he was telling me about his life. When as a young man, he played with different people. At 18, he sat in with Duke Ellington's band. And then he did some gigs with Dinah Washington, and he adored her. And all the guys in the band adored her because she was a businesswoman. She taught them about contracts. She told them what to look out for in the contracts. She started the Queen Agency. She signed up Johnny Mathis and God, a white, I can't remember, but she was a real business person. And this was a Black man talking about this singer. So that's another positive thing in the man's world that I experienced. So just wanted to share that.
May I dovetail on Maxine? Maxine, I'm so glad that you also mentioned the positive aspects of a man's presence in a woman's world. And one of the nicest things that ever happened to me in my life was after my first year of teaching in Ridgewood, and the conductor of the Ridgewood Village Band, Warren Grimm of blessed memory, invited me to be the violin soloist with the Ridgewood Village Band for a summer concert in the Cashaw band shell outside on a hot July afternoon. And he trained that band to accompany me. And I put on my old prom dress. It was the only gown that I owned at the time. And I played, and he said, listen, I want you to get tenure. And for you to get tenure, you have to prove that you're a full performing musician. You should do this. And I did. And in that moment, I realized the way to be a really good teacher is to help other people self-actualize and be the best that they can be. That's what good teaching is, to promote the other person and let them do their very, very best, and then affirm them and celebrate them. And that was a moment that I will never forget, and that I've tried to emulate my entire life. And that came from a wonderful male role model in my life.
Thank you guys so much for sharing your experiences. It kind of brought me back to, I'm sure Marcos is familiar with this phrase, but there's something in Latinx culture, and it's called machismo pride, or like machismo culture, which is basically male domination in a family, or in wherever you grow up. And in my family, it was really like predominant until like recent years, but where like my grandfather or my father was basically in charge of the whole house. So it's like what they say goes, you know, women have no voice, and that's what machismo pride is.
And it was expected. You know, you
Yeah,
have
it's
generations
expected.
and
Like
generations
women
of
are mute in the Latinx culture. So you know, to hear how you guys have either overcome different things, or kind of, as Dr. Redding Rain said, you know, we're very unapologetic of, you know, who you are. It's very encouraging, especially because it's so different from like what I grew up like seeing in women, you know. So our last question for today is there any advice you would like to give our viewers today, specifically young women, students? We have some students here. Our e-board is obviously all students, but just in general, any advice you would like to give our viewers for today?
I'd just like to say to the next generation of young and gifted men and women, my first piece of suggestion would be fierce, be bold, and dare to dream big. My next suggestion would be believe in yourself, because if you don't, nobody else will. My third piece of suggestion would be authentic in who you are and embrace your authenticity. Don't let others define you in a single story. My next suggestion would be don't afraid of making mistakes, because it's in the valley of life where you grow. My next suggestion would be take a seat at the table, and once you are there, take ownership of your narrative. Let your light so shine so that others may see and hear you. And my last suggestion would be stand for something, or else you will fall for anything. Thank you so very much.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Dr. Redding Rain. Let's pass this to Miss Leslie Dixon.
I absolutely agree with everything that Dr. Reddy said. I thought of three things, and I think the first is to rest. I think that is so important. I have a friend of mine who her grandmother turned 105, and I'm just I'm just in awe. And I would always ask her, what did she do? What were her secrets to live that such a long and fruitful life? And she's in pretty good health. And she said she rested. She would rest, and she would say rest is not the same as sleep. So I think that that's really important. A part of self-care is to, again, like listen to your body and take a pause and rest. The second piece of advice that I would give is to trust your intuition, trust your gut. I think that when we're young, we're a a lot more in tune with that piece of ourselves, with that spirit that really kind of guides us. It's a small voice, and I think as we grow and get older, and there's so many influences with social media, and there's so many different voices that I think come at us, that sometimes it's hard to, again, like center yourself, but trust your gut. You know what you know, what you know. Don't let anybody really try to deter you from whatever that passion is. And the third piece of advice is to create a team for yourself. So surround yourself with folks that support you, folks that love you, people that have your back, and people that you're going to go to bat for. I think that those three areas can help, again, to ground you and really put you in a position to be successful no matter what you do.
Thank you. Let's have Dr. Freeman go.
Well, I completely concur with the comments I've heard so eloquently mentioned so far. I completely agree. And I remember that when my mother was an opera singer and then a cantor, she would take time every afternoon to just lie down and rest. So Ms. Dixon, what you're saying brings back a sweet memory for me. And even though myself and my three siblings would be running around the house and making a lot of noise, she took that time for herself. And she explained that she needed to rest her voice, that this was her instrument and she needed to take care of it. So I agree with you and Dr. Redding Rain so much. I also want to mention to the men and women who are listening to this today, that as you go through your life, you're going to be going through different phases of your lives. And mental health is so important. And I think it's 1 out of 4 people in the world suffer from some sort of mental illness or concern or worry or strain. And please ask for help in those moments, because when you are not just physically healthy, but mentally healthy, then you can do all the wonderful things that Dr. Redding Rains and Ms. Dixon mentioned. Please take very, very good care of yourself in that way. And you can reach out to NAMI, the National Alliance of Mental Illness, or to a social worker on campus, or to a clergy person, someone who you can trust, who will not pass judgment, but will give you affirmation and be a good listening ear. And I've lived through this in my own family's narrative, and there's been so much transgenerational trauma in my life's narrative, being a Jewish woman who has suffered through the Holocaust, through family members dying in the Holocaust and the pogroms of Russia and Ukraine. This mental health piece of your life's journey is so important. I can't emphasize it enough. Thank you.
Miss Maxine Roach.
Well, as an artist, I think, I've grown so much and have been fed so much by my craft and the artists that I've met and played with. I find music takes me away and makes me, I don't think about being Black every day. I think about the craft. And if you think about the craft that way, it'll take you away, and then you will find people of like mind, and they will be supportive of you. And I've had so many occasions like I've witnessed it with people around me. I remember a story. I was traveling with my father in Italy, and we were checking in, the double quartet was checking into a hotel, and took some time, and then everyone heard somebody call my father's name from across the lobby, Max. Turned around, it was Pavarotti. Now, why would Pavarotti know Max Roach? You think about that. Because of the skill. The skill, the language is the same. The mastery of the language. There's also a story of many years ago, Aretha Franklin sang an aria from Turandot, Puccini at the Grammys, Nessun Dorma. And she did that because Pavarotti at the time had an international club of singers. They would come together whenever he was in town, whatever town he was in, he had singers. And they'd come together and sing anything, just sing. He got sick. He was supposed to sing Nessun Dorma at the Grammys. He asked Aretha Franklin to sing it because Aretha Franklin loved opera. So you get to a level where, it's important as a human being to live your life with dignity and to recognize those people around you. And there has to be moments when the hatred and the sexism and the racism, it has to fall apart, has to fall away. And your craft will do that for you. Keep that in mind. You should fly away, whatever you do in life. Because it's true.
Thank you so much for that. That was like exactly what I needed today. I mean, I can speak for a lot of, my e-board and just a lot of the musicians that I know right now are really struggling. One, COVID is happening, so a lot of students everywhere. But also just, with everything going on, and at the peak this summer of the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of us felt very discouraged, and we felt really boxed in. And so hearing that was really inspiring, kind of just gave me a new perspective. So thank you.
Can I say one more thing? I'm not a big fan of rap because I just, I got to understand the words, I mean, I'm like Sarah Vaughan, kind of fan. But I was talking to my father about this one day, and I think I told Tamara Friedman about this. And he did some collaborations with some rappers before he passed away. And he said, it's not traditional music. It's not chords. It's not melody, it's like a phoenix. He used to think it was a phoenix rising from the ashes. And when you think of it that way, I went to public school and it was kids who wanted to study anything had the equipment there to study it. And then it was stripped away over the years. Arts programs were gone, so what do these brilliant young people of color come up with? Scratching on, and then rap, and rap is holding up the recording industry. It's at now, so it's that you can't take the creative thing away from people. You can strip them financially, I guess, but so it's important to know that in this time during the pandemic, and you think that things are, you get low and whatnot, you got to find the phoenix and rise, too. It's important. And and this is the special time because you're students and you have the time to do it,
It takes me back to one of my favorite quotes from Rant, which it goes, the opposite of war isn't peace, it's creation.
Mm.
And we have to, more than ever now especially, we
That's
have to
right.
get our voices out there. We have to, do what we can to make a difference. And that's where the real peace is going to come from.
Yeah. I think something that has also really helped me through this time is like, I now teach at 3 different places. So I'm teaching voice and piano. And, I work with predominantly the BIPOC population. So it's been really awesome to just kind of see how you know, even though right now, sometimes I feel a little bit down on myself, just being able to uplift like and encourage my students to keep going during this time has been really, really awesome. I just wanted to thank you all for joining us. You guys are so inspiring and so strong. Um, and really, I feel like I've learned so much. And thank you guys for supporting MSJ today and celebrating Women's History Month with us.
It was an honor.
Thank you so very much. And
Thank you.
kudos
you
to
so
my
much.
fellow panelists. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you.
Thank all of you. And I want to thank the e-board. It's an honor and a privilege to be your advisor, and you're wonderful, wonderful people. And I'm so proud to be part of Cali and to be part of this wonderful organization. Thank you to
We
the
have a
panelists.
question here. We have a
Oh.
question.
Oh, no, I just need to add something. I just wanted to thank you all for being the panelists today. It was an amazing chat. Thank you, Dr. Friedman, for helping us organize this, and to all our MSJ supporters. If you want to continue the enrichment of our organization, we do have 2 platforms that you can donate to if you would like. Our Venmo, which you can search Musicians for Social Justice, or you can search at Musicians for Social Justice -MSJ, or PayPal, which you can search Musicians for Social Justice. And I'll put all the information in the chat as well, too. All donations will go towards the enhancement of all future workshops and events that MSJ presents. Once again, thank you again.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. And if you'd like to stay up to date on all things MSJ, please feel free to follow us on Instagram at msu.msj.com and on Facebook at Musicians for Social Justice, and our website, which is on our link. And you can find us at musiciansforsocialjustice.wixsite.com. I want to thank you guys again for this breath of fresh air, and encourage everybody to go outside and enjoy the beautiful weather and stare at the sun.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.